Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my House of the Dragon book club video where I talk all things Fire and Blood, and specifically I'm going to be giving my basic outline of how I think things might be divided off in the next 3 seasons. We did get a firm timeline from George R. R. Martin of 4 seasons of 10 episodes each, so we've got 3 more of those to go. So I'm going to talk about how I think the book material will be divided out, or how I would like it to be divided out over the next 3 seasons. But before I dive into it, I have to give the biggest of spoiler warnings. If you have not read Fire and Blood and you don't want to be spoiled, this video is not for you. I'm going to get into specifics of who dies, when they die, and who kills who, and who does what. And I'm going to get into very specifics about the very, very end of the story. So if you have not read the source material and you do not want to be spoiled, then this is not the video for you. Please go and check out my House of the Dragon Season 1 review, where I don't spoil anything from the books. And this is a video I've been very, very excited about because I've done all of these live discussions with my brother and our friend Darren weekly, and I've done a couple of reviews on my own, and those have all been spoiler free except for one brief section of my first video, but mostly spoiler free. And I'm just sitting here going, I gotta talk about the book, and I can't because I don't want to spoil people. So this is just me letting it all out. Just let it all out. So before I get started, one last reminder that there will be huge spoilers, just so you get the point.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Book readers only! Spoiler alert!
Okay, did I get my point across yet? Do you understand that there's going to be huge, huge, huge spoilers? Okay, here we go. We're diving right into it. So I am going to go through each of the next 3 seasons and how I think they should divide up the book material. These are not official predictions. This is me kind of spitballing and throwing out ideas. When we get closer to season 2, which I guess won't be for another couple of years from what I understand, when we get closer to that time, I will do my official predictions video for season 2, and those are the ones that I'm going to count and do a score at the end. I'm not doing a score at the end of this video because, well, seasons 3 and 4 are going to be years and years away, and season 2 is 2 years away. So before each season, provided that my channel still exists by then, I will be doing official prediction videos. There will be more from. This is just me kind of throwing out ideas. So season 2, we've got 10 episodes of season 2. So obviously, I think we're going to get Blood and Cheese very early on, and put a pin in that. I do want to get back to that and get into more detail because that's going to be a pretty big event at the very beginning of the season. Other things that I think we will get in season 2, we'll get the dragon seeds, we'll get the introduction of Ulf White and Hugh the Hammer, and then Adam and Alan Valerian. Now, they could consolidate some characters, like they could make Ulf and Hammer into one character. I have heard theories that perhaps they could replace Adam and or Alan Valerian with Laenor since he's still alive in the show, which I don't want them to do. And I actually don't think they need to merge characters here. I know that is something Game of Thrones did a lot. But I think in this story, I think it's less necessary. I want to see Ulf White. I want to see Hugh the Hammer. I want to see both Valerian twins. Well, first they're Adam of the Hull and Alan of the Hull, but later they become, Valerians. But Corliss's two bastard twins who come in. I don't want to see them replaced by Laenor. That's kind of dumb. I don't like that theory. I hope they don't do that. And they might, but I hope not. So we're gonna get that stuff in there. I think the big mid-season event, maybe 5 or 6-ish, will be the big dragon battle, which results in Rhaenys' death and Aegon getting injured and being out of commission for a while. I think it's very possible that that actor could be off the show until season 4, and he'll be in it a little bit, but then kind of maybe at the end of the season sort of disappear. And then come back at the Dragonstone thing, and so I think that's a possible way they could do it. But yeah, Aegon will be out of commission. Aemond will take over, as we know, because you're watching this having read the book, and Rhaenys will die, and I think a lot of the show watchers are going to be really sad about that. It's going to be really hard to watch, and you know what? I, as a book reader, am going to be really sad about that. It's going to be really hard to watch because I love this character on the screen, especially in the last 3 episodes or so. I think she was underused in the first part of the season, but she's really come onto her own at the end of the season. And to see her death mid-season is going to be tough, but it is a part of the material. And we'll also get Jacaerys' death in the season as well. And as for the end of the season, I think there's no other way you can possibly end it than Rhaenyra taking over King's Landing and taking the Iron Throne. In fact, I think it would be a good last shot of the season. Dun 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 dun. Dun. Rhaenyra climbing the steps of the Iron Throne and sitting down. Dun, credits. Now I saw another review that was kind of season 2 predictions, and he said that I don't think we'll have time to get to that. I think it's going to end with Luke's death. What do you mean we don't have time to get to that? It has to end there. That is the most logical place to end. You can't end it anywhere else. His logic was, well, mirror the end of season 1, having Luke die, or I'm sorry, Jace. I said Luke, I think. Having Jace die at the end of season 2, since you had Luke die at the end of season 1. No, that wouldn't mirror it. That would be repetitive and boring. No, there's no other possible way to end it except for Rhaenyra taking the Iron Throne. It has to end that way. This is the most logical place to end it. And to be fair, I had said that the best place to end season 1 would have been the battle at Storm's End between Luke and Aemond, and they did end it that way, and everyone loved it. Show watchers and book readers alike. It was fantastic. So I said that would be the perfect place to end season 1, and I'm telling you the perfect place to end season 2 is Rhaenyra taking the Iron Throne. You cannot end it anywhere else. I don't care when anyone says they don't have time to get there. They do have time to get there, and they definitely need to, because that's where it has to end. Jace's death should come a little bit before that. I don't want the season to end the exact same way as season 1 with one of Rhaenyra's kids dying. That comes a little bit earlier. Rhaenyra taking the Iron Throne. I can't wait to see this on screen. I can't wait to see how Aemond and Kristen Cole are going, oh, we're going off to Harrenhal. We're going to get Daemon. Oh, I can't wait for this. And they just kind of sneak in and get King's Landing and take it while they're gone. I love that when I read the book. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, before I move on to season 3, I do want to loop back around, as I said, and focus in on Blood and Cheese, because I think that is going to be a pretty big event pretty early on in the next season that we are going to get in a couple years from now. Okay, so I have a couple of different things to talk about with Blood and Cheese. First off, I have said previously in the one video that I did that did have some spoilers in it, I said that I think that it's going to be awesome, and I think it can be. I think that it can be scary good. I think that it can be disturbingly good, and I think it can really show us that once again, Daemon is not a good person, and Team Black is not infallible. They're not the good guys. And also, since Daemon goes through Massaria, it will give us a new look at Massaria too, because they tried to paint her as the woman of the people, she cares about the kids in the fighting pits, but the fact that she's going to hire these psychopaths is going to shed some light on her as well, and I think that's very important to the story. However, I think they're going to need to be very careful about this. I definitely heard a lot of people with some concerns about the shock value of it all, and particularly with the birthing scene in episode 10, also the violence against women, the Daemon choking his wife, Rhaenyra, that triggered a lot of people. You gotta be careful about child murder, especially in today's day and age where children are literally being murdered every day, unfortunately, and it's hard for me to even talk about it, and I'm not personally affected by it. I haven't lost a kid personally, but imagine someone who has, watching a scene of child murder. If they don't handle this well, there's going to be a lot of backlash. And you could try to go around it. You could try to maybe kill off Helena instead, although then you've got the issue of violence against women. But I don't think so. I think this is such a crucial part of the story. It has to be in there. But they gotta handle it. They may have to do some things Game of Thrones doesn't like to do. I heard it suggested that in the episode 10 in particular, with the graphic nature of the birthing scene, that a content warning would have been helpful to people. Game of Thrones, I don't think, has ever done that before. That's not, they don't like to do that. They just want to shock you. But it might behoove them to do that, especially since Obi-Wan Kenobi did it for a scene. I forget what it even was, but it wasn't even remotely as as graphic as this scene is when it comes to child violence or violence against children. So they gotta be careful. I think that a content warning wouldn't be the worst idea. Also, rather than having a repeat of the Daemon chopping off Vaemon's head with that really gross, like, partial head chop off, and the head goes flying, and you see the body fall over and blood falls out, and then you see, like, the detached body. Like, with a kid, don't do that. Don't do that. And we if they have cheese, like, slice off the kid's head and blood goes gushing out everywhere, and then they focus in on the severed head on the ground, like, that is gonna be so bad. That's not gonna go over well. I know that's what Game of Thrones likes to do, but you can't do that when it comes to child murder. Again, I think it has to happen. I don't think you can skip this story beat. I think it's vitally important, but you gotta do it tactfully. And they don't like to do this either, but have the beheading happen off screen and focus in on Helena and Alicent's reaction to it, and there's your power. And even that is going to be triggering to people. But if they do it well, I will defend it if people are saying that this is too far or whatever. If they do it this way, then I will defend it because it's part of the book. It needs to be here. I'm sorry, it has to be here. So, it's just such a vital part of it. Also, they are going to need to build up Helena's children a little bit before they get to it. They're going to have to do a Luke. It's pretty soon. People who haven't read the books are going to start looking for child murder anytime, or people dying, kids dying, anytime they see, like, oh, here's somebody's kids. Let's build them up at the beginning of this episode, even though we've never touched on them before. But they're going to have to, because we've barely seen Helena's kids. Now, blood and cheese could occur in the first or second episode. I could see it going either way. I think the end of the first episode would probably be better, but they could wait till the second episode, but we shall see. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is the whole beast beneath the boards thing. Everyone is saying that it is the dragon, and we've already seen it. I was thinking more rat. I was thinking the rat was the beast beneath the board, or cheese himself, because they do go through the walls. I don't think they come through the floor, but in the show they could come through the floor. I think that would, especially since Helena is the one who had the vision, and Helena is the one who's most directly affected by it. So I think that that would make more sense. What boards are there in the dragon pit? There's no boards there. And also, beast, dragon, that's too on the nose. I think having a more metaphorical beast, like if the beast is cheese, and with his rat, perhaps. I know he's a rat catcher. I'm just picturing him with a pet rat. But I don't know. I kind of thought it was more referring to blood and cheese, and I kind of hope that Helena says beast beneath the boards in the first episode, and people go like, what? I thought we already did that. No, because what boards are there in the dragon pit? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. We'll see what they do with that. It's not a huge deal, I guess, if it was the dragon, but I think it makes more sense to me if it's referring to the rat or the rat catcher. So we'll see what they do with that. I'll talk about season 3, because I think season 3 is going to be the most epic season. Maybe not necessarily the best, but it'll be the most epic. Okay, you got your battle at the lake. I forget what that lake was called. This is a huge deal. I think you're gonna need more characters we're familiar with there, but I think they'll do that, and I think it's gonna be epic. And then the mid-season dragon battle here will be Damon versus Aemond. This is going to be so epic. It's going to take up all of their budget to do this dragon battle. It's going to be so good. Oh my gosh. Curious to see what they do with Damon, since like his fate is kind of up in the air. I feel like they're gonna show that he dies. I don't know. This idea that he runs off with his consort. God, I can get them confused. Was he Alice Rivers or Nettles? Like one of them was Aemon and one of them was Damon, but whichever one it was that he was with, there's the theory that he ran off to be with her and lived out the rest of his days. I can't imagine Damon as the show has presented him, running from the war and running from his family and running from Rhaenyra. I think they would have to do a lot of character building between now and then to get to that point. I have a hard time seeing that. I think it makes more sense to kill him off, but we'll see. Got a couple more seasons before we get to that point. The end of season 3 to me has got to be the riots and the riots in the dragon pit, and then Rhaenyra's eventual fleeing from King's Landing. So that makes the most sense to me, as season 2 ends with Rhaenyra getting the Iron Throne and coming to King's Landing, and season 3 ends with her fleeing from King's Landing. I think that's too logical. Like, how could you not do it that way? I think that's the way it's got to be done. I think that makes the most sense. And man, that riot in the Dragon Pit, that is gonna be crazy. That is going to be so crazy. Like all these people like getting roasted and by dragons, getting their just getting destroyed by dragons, but then ultimately the people win and kill off most of the dragons. So that's going to be brutal, but it's going to be so good. Also, I don't know how they're going to have the CGI budget for season 3. There's so much that they can do in season 3. This is going to be truly epic. So now getting into season 4, the final season, I think that it has to have Aemon, or God, so many different names that are so similar. Aegon. Aegon versus Rhaenyra at Dragonstone, with Rhaenyra getting eaten by Sunfire. That has to happen toward the end of the whole show, because Rhaenyra has been the character that we've been following since the beginning. She's the character that fans have latched onto. Most notably, I think her death needs to be toward the end. I think episode 8 might be good. They could even do it in episode 9 and only have one episode of wrap-up after that. I think 2 episodes of wrap-up is probably good. But once Rhaenyra goes, you gotta start wrapping things up. I don't think you kill Rhaenyra off halfway through the season and then have 5 episodes that will feel like one big giant epilogue to the fans. Like, it'd just be too much. I think you gotta have the rise and fall of Aegon. I think it'll be condensed. You could condense it into 1 episode. And then what is known as the Hour of the Wolf with Cregan Stark. I think that needs to be greatly condensed. I even thought it wouldn't be a horrible thing just to cut it out entirely. I know that would upset a lot of fans of the book. I listened to a book club podcast where the people were all agreeing that, no, you have to have the Hour of the Wolf. You have to have that Cregan Stark. And I would say, take 2 episodes for it. That's what someone else said. Me, personally. 2 episodes, it was way too much to spend with a character we have not been following. I know people love the Starks, but this is the Targaryen show. We've already had the Stark show. This is the Targaryen show, not the Stark show. So you can't have 2 episodes focused on the Stark and the Targaryen show. I'm sorry. You just can't do that. People are not going to care. Even if we get to know Cregan Stark between here and there, having Rhaenyra dead, you got to wrap things up shortly after. So I think, if anything, Kragan Stark comes in and just says, "Hey, we need to kill off these people. Like we need to the people who conspired with Aegon. We need to kill them off," and that's where Larys Clubfoot dies, and you can still have that scene. And I think you frame it more. For me personally, I think it makes more sense to frame it more that these are the people that supported Aegon who are still working in the castle, still working on the council, rather than the people who murdered Aegon. I think that plays a little weird on TV. Like, oh, so we hated this guy, but we want to punish the people who killed him. I mean, they didn't punish Jaime Lannister for killing the Mad King. Now, he did get branded with Kingslayer, and people call him Kingslayer all the time, and some people look down upon him for breaking his vows. But nobody murdered him. Nobody executed him. Because there's like, people generally agree it was a good thing that he killed the Mad King. So I think it would be weird to have Kragan Stark say, well, we got to kill these people because they killed the Mad King, basically, which is what Aegon basically devolves into by then. So I think Kragan Stark is 15 minutes. I'm sorry, it's not 2 full episodes. I think there's way too much. I know that will upset a lot of people, but I think in a Targaryen show, focus on the Targaryens, not the Starks. Once Rhaenyra is gone, we're wrapping things up in the next episode or 2. That's how I see it. Now, this does create a little bit of an issue because if I'm talking about having the Verniera fleeing King's Landing at the end of season 3 and not having the battle at Dragonstone with Aegon and her getting eaten by Sunfire until toward the end of season 4, there's a lot of space to fill there, and Rhaenyra doesn't do a whole lot in the book. She basically just kind of goes into different houses who are loyal to her and stays with them for a little bit. But they could find ways to make that interesting. I trust the creative team behind this show. I think that they could find ways to build her character more, to really set up the stakes for what is coming in Dragonstone. I think they can do it. So I'm not too worried about that. I think they can fill that space. Also in season 4, the second battle of Tumbleton should take place here. That will be kind of the big event. The Adam Valerian trying to redeem himself. Which, I don't know. I just don't like this Leonor thing. Like, I think it needs to be Adam Valerian. So that will be happening. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention is the way that they have set up Rhaenyra in the show. I don't think that they can make her quite as paranoid delusional as she is in the book, where she's just saying, everybody around me is trying to kill me. Like, I think they can make her a little leery of people betraying her and make it hard for her to trust people, but not go quite as far as the book does, where she's basically delusional, and the people around her are too, where they're just like, oh, well, we have to just get rid of all bastards just because these 2 bastards over here betrayed us, Ulf White and Hugh the Hammer. So no more bastards at all. Bastards can't be trusted. I don't think that that's what they should do with Rhaenyra in the show. I think they should soften that a bit, where maybe it's like somebody frames Adam Valerian and Rhaenyra really wants to trust him, but has just been burned so many times. She's like, I'm sorry. It looks bad for you. I can't trust you. More like that, rather than like her just being completely paranoid and delusional. I don't think that her character can be in the show the way it is depicted in the book, because so far it hasn't been. She's already been softened, so they have to continue that. So I don't think they can have her quite descend into madness the way that she does in the book. But it'll be very interesting to see how they do handle that. Anyways, I got a little bit sidetracked with all that stuff. I did want to make sure that I said that the whole show does need to end with Aegon III being crowned and marrying Aegon's daughter. Was it Jaehaera? I get all those J names all mixed up. Whatever her name is, like, they marry. There's probably a voiceover. I don't know who does it. Rhaenyra's dead by this point, so maybe Corliss does it. Where they're like, okay, so now finally the 2 parts of the House Targaryen have now come back together again. we're moving forward now. House Targaryen has won again, but at what cost? All the dragons are gone, and this will cause irreparable damage and all of these sorts of things. So I think that's where the show needs to end. So Rhaenyra death late in the season, a little bit of wrap up for an episode or two, ending with Aegon coming together, Aegon the Third, that is Rhaenyra's son, coming together with Aegon the Second's daughter, and I think that's where the show all needs to end. And by the way, I have to say this in a book club video, speaking of Corliss, in that episode, was it episode 8 of season 1, where there's all these people talking about, oh, who's going to succeed Corliss when he dies, because he might die really soon now. And I'm sitting there thinking, Corliss is going to outlive all of those motherfuckers, all of them. There's a couple of people, Alicent, his granddaughters are still around at the end of it. Bela and Rhaena are still around. Alicent is still around. But that's about it. They're like, oh, will Luke be the one? Luke dies way before Corliss. Like, I'm like, you're going to be dead before Corliss. You're going to be dead before Corliss. You're going to be dead before Corliss. Everybody in that room, almost, except for like 3 people. So I just wanted to like scream that out when I was doing my live discussion on that episode with Mark and Darren, and I was like, oh, I can't, because this is spoiler free, but I was like, Corliss is gonna long outlive all those motherfuckers. This is so funny to me. Okay, anyways, had to get that off my chest. Now I can go ahead and wrap up this video. All right, that does it for my book club video. Thank you for joining me. This was really fun for me. Glad to get it all out of my system. But I'm not done yet, because I am going to do a book spoiler-filled live discussion with Mark and Don Willie, who is also not only read the book, but he is the aficionado of the Song of Ice and Fire. He's got all of the knowledge floating around in his head. So we are going to do a book spoiler discussion on Monday, October 31st. I guess it's Halloween, isn't it? Halloween at 6 p.m. West Coast, 9 o'clock East Coast, and I'll throw the link in the description below as soon as Mark gives it to me, so that you can find it that way, or otherwise subscribe to Mark or I or both of us, and you'll get that notification. Actually, you'll get it from him because it's on his channel. But either way, definitely be there or be square, and then do please subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you very, very soon. Goodbye.